We couldn't.
I put constructive criticism of your craft.
Constructive criticism of your craft. Excellent, excellent. And if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourselves and speaking, please just go ahead and add those items to the chat. So we have the good and bad of your crafts becoming.
No, I'll take it.
Go ahead, you're next. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the process by which one learns a usually unbiased opinion of successes, failures, and constructive criticism to grow.
Wow. I heard growth. I heard constructive criticism. Excellent.
Yeah,
I see it as
go ahead.
A verbal assessment of something what you've just completed or doing.
Something you just completed or something that you are doing. So that was
A verbal assessment of what.
An assessment of something you're doing or something you were just doing. Excellent. I love it.
You never hunted about what you got going.
Okay. Anyone else care to share?
Yeah, I got information return to aid in the growth as a person, student, educator, etc.
To aid in your growth as a student, as an educator. All of you gave really good definitions, personal definitions of feedback. That's why I know that I've come to the right place to get help with this presentation. Let's see how right you were. In general terms, the term feedback is used to describe all of the different comments that you get after the fact. So after you've performed, after you've done something, or even during, okay, because some of the most effective feedback is given during the process. This includes advice, praise, and evaluations that you might receive. So it's as simple as someone saying you're doing a great job, to in order to reach your goal, you're going to need to position yourself a certain way in order to do a certain maneuver. So it can be very, very specific. But the question is all feedback that we receive effective? So when I spoke back before, I'll speak back on my accomplishment, was all of the feedback, advice, praise, and evaluations that I received, were all of those effective? Not necessarily. When we speak in terms of effective feedback, okay, we're speaking of feedback that is goal referenced, it's tangible, it's transparent and actionable, it is user friendly. And by that, we mean it's specific and it's personalized, not just general blanket advice that we would give to anyone. It is also supportive. Someone spoke earlier about feedback being constructive. It's supportive. It is meant to build up and not tear down. It is timely. Someone spoke of receiving the feedback just after or during. It is also feedback that is ongoing and consistent. So when we receive feedback, in order for it to be effective, it can't just be something we say once and done. I'm sure that Ms. Wilson, who spoke earlier about receiving her feedback, she'll tell you that I didn't just come to her once, visit her classroom one time and say nothing else about something that we spoke of before. I spoke about it, my observation, we talked about it, we talked about possible ways to make changes, and then I came back and continued to give her feedback. And I was also consistent in that process. So all feedback isn't necessarily effective feedback. So now I have a video clip for you. And what I would like for you to do is to view this clip, the manner in which feedback is given. And we're going to engage in a brief discussion about feedback and the manner in which feedback is given. As you are watching, I would like for you to think about some of the factors that inhibit individuals from giving candid feedback. Keyword here, candid. Please be prepared to share once we conclude the viewing of the clip.
I was doing training in Boulder. I live in Denver, Colorado. And I had about 65 people. Where are the Colorado people? Woo! And I had about 65 people. And they were an in-tech group. So it'd be like if I had your whole office, right? And I was hired to help them be more candid. That was my job, help teams be more candid. And I had them all day, 9 to 4. And in the front of the room right here, this guy is sitting with his teammates. And all day long, he has a booger right here. Booger. Now, when you have a booger right here, what's the only thing you can see? It's the booger, right? Like there's no head, there's no body, there's just this booger. Now, tell me why all day nobody talks to the guy about the booger. Why is that? They didn't want to what? They didn't want to make him feel bad, and they didn't want to embarrass him. So let me ask you a question. Which is worse? For someone to be like, dude, or to let him walk around with the booger all day? What would you prefer if it was you? But we have this thing that it's not nice to tell people the truth, right? We have this thing, we're nice people, it's not nice. So I'm gonna start a sentence and I want you to finish it, okay? You ready? If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Who taught you that? Your mommy. So it's mommy's fault that there's not more candor in the workplace.
So, after viewing this video, after having viewed the video and hearing what the expert on providing candid feedback in the workplace had to say about the process of giving and receiving feedback, what are your thoughts? You can unmute yourselves and share. Any volunteers? Remember, you're doing most of the talking today.
I'll chime in. I kind of feel like every time you want to give feedback, you have to make it positive. And you don't want to hurt or discourage anybody from doing any work or wanting to try. So that feedback is always kind of sugar-coated. You know, you give a feedback sandwich or a compliment sandwich. Oh, you did this really great, but you know, you need to change this. But keep doing this, what you did really well. So sometimes, you know, you can just really be honest with the kids and let them know where they kind of fell short, and don't be afraid to be critical. To be critical, not criticizing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think it's hard to hear feedback that's comes across as negative, but sometimes you need that feedback because it will help you to go in the right direction, or at least try to figure out what the problem is. Otherwise, you sit in what you're in.
Yeah, sometimes I've learned along the way, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and the tones in which you use your words. It goes a long way.
I would like to say that when you're like in the leadership or management or any sort of a boss position, it's very important to learn how to communicate and in a way that will encourage people's growth and not like shut them down by the way that you're saying it, or even just with not just with your words, but nonverbal cues. So like you know, doing a sigh or stuff like that. Like it's very important for us as teachers, for the students, like when they make a mistake, not to like roll our eyes or, you know, like show signs of not being at peace. And it's also important for our like evaluators as well, like not to get frustrated, like maybe it's their first year for that teacher, or maybe, you know, they they're having a bad day, and it just happens to be a day that you come in and you do a spot, or whatever the case may be. So just learn how to communicate and encourage growth.
Excellent. I appreciate each of your all of your feedback, and of course, can you guys still see me well?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
It's a little dark.
The light, my moment. Definitely something to think about when we're on virtual learning and we're in the classroom. The lights go off when there's no movement. So thank you guys for sharing your statements about feedback and the manner in which it is delivered. Really resonated with me. I heard the term sugar-coated, compliment sandwich. I heard feedback being delivered, although it may come across as negative, necessary, because without it, you just sit in the same place. And then I also heard the importance of being mindful of the tone in which you deliver it, and also not just your verbal tone, but also your physical tone. What is your body language saying? And I think it is for all of those reasons that we are hesitant or reluctant to provide very, very necessary feedback. And when we get that feedback, we're not always receptive to receiving the feedback. And what my hopes are is that as a campus, we can move more towards one where we don't necessarily look at receiving feedback as a judgmental process or a critical process per se, but that we're looking at it as more of a developmental tool that we embrace and we use and adore and cherish as a part of our growth process in meeting our mission and our goals and meeting the needs of our students. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Sweeney, may I add something?
Yes.
I was just thinking because being that I've been in education this is my 18th year in education on top of versus my business life, which I'm fairly new in, there's a lot of growth in both areas. And sometimes as educators who have been in the field for a long time, we don't see things the way that other people may see them, and we're stuck in a certain mind frame. For me personally, I mean, I know you know me personally, you know, I'll take any, I'm quick to ask the question, like, did I do that right or whatever, especially in reading. But I've noticed, like, in my business aspect, it's helped a lot for me to see that it's okay for people to give you criticism so you can grow, so that you know what you're doing wrong, that you're not interpreting things, or maybe they feel, okay, well, this wasn't quite right this time. And I think having that extra, the business aspect on top of my educational field has helped me realize that, hey, you know, not all the time someone says something, it's a negative thing. So I think that as an individual, I've grown a lot trying to figure out in both aspects. And I think there's a difference between when you're new in something and then when you're old. So what my point in saying is, if you're an older veteran teacher, then sometimes you have to be open-minded, because everything is not going to, you know, with the changes and everything, we have to grow with the changes. So when someone walks in your room or something and says something, then it's not necessarily just to put you down and think you don't know what you're doing, it's to help you grow. And I can see that now from the business aspect, looking and putting it with my educational aspect.
Absolutely. There is most definitely a crossover when it comes to feedback, and we'll discuss it a little bit more in this presentation today. I knew I was in the right place. Feedback, especially, I mean, all of us really, and I think corporate America does a better job at using feedback. It downright could determine whether or not your business is profitable. And again, here in education, feedback could stand in the way, your lack of, or the quality of your feedback could stand in the way of you performing and meeting our goals, your personal goals that you're setting, and the goals for our students. So thank you so much for adding that, Ms. Champion. So as we think about feedback and we discuss the importance of the way feedback is delivered, I really want you to take this moment to think about how receptive you really are to feedback that you receive. Ms. Champion mentioned the fact that some of us, having been around for so long, we kind of get set in the way that we do things because we are thriving. I know, again, as a parent, I'm thriving. My daughter is 20, my son is 18, but then I have an 8-year-old, and I was able to survive motherhood and bring my older children through a much, much different time. And then at this point, I have the little one. I can't always apply the same performance or use the same reactions or respond to my daughter, raise my daughter in the same manner in which I did for the older ones. Sometimes you need feedback. You need to reassess, you need to reflect and change your practice and apply your feedback in order to be successful, be a successful parent and make adjustments. Otherwise, the lives of others can be negatively affected because I'm just stuck in my old self and I'm not willing and receptive to receive feedback and use it to grow. So how receptive are you? So are you appreciative of feedback, or are you quick to dismiss everything that you hear? Not me. I know that's not what I look like when I teach. I know I'm good at my job. How dare you come in and tell me that I'm not doing something well? She just got here. How does she know anything? We really should think about the way we receive feedback, because it can inhibit, we can stand in the way of our own growth, and we can dismiss very, very valid advice that could compel us to the next level simply because we aren't receptive, or because the person may not have taken those necessary steps to sugarcoat or create the compliment sandwich. They just came out and told you exactly what it is that they saw because they thought it would be necessary for you to grow. So now, we're going to do an activity where we'll listen to some different scenarios and share how we would respond if we receive the feedback. So if you would, this can be done in the chat. It's my preference that you do this in the chat. If you would, just take a moment, imagine that you were in the classroom and you just presented your best lesson ever, or what you consider your best lesson ever. Your evaluator, your mentor, one of the campus CICs, and IoT, they came in, they did an observation, and they provided you some very, very candid feedback about your performance. How do you respond? Would you respond favorably? You give a thumbs up, or you can use the icons to do a smiley face, or simply type favorably. Or do you respond unfavorably? You'll respond with something like a sad face or a thumbs down in the chat box. Let's get started. Scenario 1. You could be the best teacher in the world, but if you're teaching the wrong thing at the wrong time, it is not very, very beneficial for your students. How do you respond? Let's go ahead and fill that chat box.
So Ms. Sweeney, I don't know if you can see it, but we have a lot of happy and sad.
Thank you. So happy and sad. Okay, so for those of you, one person, if you would share out favorably. If you chose, I would respond favorably to this feedback. Could you share with us why? One person.
Yes, I'm happy to jump in here. And I will respond favorably just because I know that I'm doing a disservice to the students in teaching at the wrong time, right? So although I may be teaching the best lesson out there, it's not doing a good service for my students.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Martinez. And one person who responded unfavorably. Can you please tell us why you would not respond well to this comment?
Because who are you to say that I'm teaching the wrong thing at the wrong time? If you didn't know what transpired in my classroom previously, then how would you know that it's the wrong thing at the wrong time?
Very good. Okay, so we have a favorable response. You come in, you provided some feedback, and you're reminding me, or you're telling me that I might not be in the right place on the calendar, or I'm a science teacher and I'm doing a great job of teaching basket weaving. Okay, so I do need to know. I most definitely need to know that it's not beneficial to my students. I'm a great teacher, you gave me that. So this was sort of sugar-coated, but that's not what we should be teaching. And then for the unfavorable comment, remember, we're teachers, so there are specific TEKS and skills that we need to teach. And then there are certain times in which we need to teach those skills. So all of that needs to be planned out in advance. So you may be doing a great job at teaching, but it is absolutely not going to benefit the students very much for our particular goal here, getting them ready or knowledgeable in the capacity in which you teach, and preparing them for upcoming assessments, and also preparing them for the next grade level or for the extensions in learning that we anticipate. You could be teaching something that's totally off. So I guess you could say it differently. Maybe some more research could be had, so the teacher could have an opportunity to explain why they're teaching what they're teaching. But for the most part, that would be my explanation as to why this may come over as unfavorable. However, very necessary if you are not teaching what it is you need to be teaching at the correct time in class. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for sharing. Here's the next one. Your lesson was engaging, but it was evident that you did not teach with a goal in mind. Carefully review the IFC, the Instructional Focus Calendar, and the TEKS, Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills, which are our skills, to ensure that your lessons are aligned to what students need to know, favorable or unfavorable. And Mr. Du Bois, if you could help me out with this one as well.
Favorable is coming in quickly. I haven't seen any unfavorable yet.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, mostly. Well, we got Ms. Sanchez. Is that Mrs. or Mr.? They have an unfavorable.
We have one unfavorable?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so for the most part, we all believe that this is, we respond favorably. This feedback is valid. This feedback makes sense. And then we have one person that thinks they respond unfavorably. Could you tell us why you would respond unfavorably to this feedback?
We have two, so.
One of those people, yes. If you would please share with us.
Sure. Basically, I would just really like to know more about why they think that and how they think I could do that better. Because just on its own, I feel like I would just go back to it and see like, I thought I did this okay. Like, I don't really know how to fix it from this.
Absolutely. I think, and was it Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. If I'm correct in my assessment of what you just said, it's more along the lines of not necessarily responding unfavorably to this feedback in and of itself, but you respond unfavorably to not knowing more about how you could be doing a good job. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll get into more about what goes along with the feedback, because remember before I mentioned, we can't just give you feedback and then turn around and walk away. In order for the feedback to be effective, you'll want to go ahead, provide the feedback, discuss ways in which we can get better and ways in which we can grow. So I definitely understand your point. And everyone else pretty much knows that this is something that you may see. You may have a lesson that's not quite aligned. We want to avoid that. That's where your PLCs come in. That's where meeting with your cohorts and turning in your lessons in advance and having those things looked over. That's where those things come in to make sure we have that alignment across the board so that we don't run into these situations. But it may occur, and if it does, rest assured that we'll do our due diligence to make sure you have what you need so that you can move forward and correct such an error in your performance as a teacher. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. Feedback 3, excuse me. You spent way too much time in the I do portion of the lesson cycle. This resulted in your students not having enough time to complete the independent practice activity. In the future, incorporate the use of a timer. Okay. Would you respond favorably or unfavorable to this one? And if there's anyone that would respond unfavorably, if you share with us, you wouldn't like hearing this very much at all.
Ms. Champion was kind of the first one, or anybody else, but I see Ms. Champion unfavorable.
Anyone else can respond, Ms. Champion, or that wants to unmute themselves and tell us why you'd respond unfavorably to this scenario.
I responded unfavorably. I'm Miss Lewis. Sorry, I'm in the cafeteria.
Can you hear me, Miss Winnie?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I based it off of your feedback, like the first one and this one, well, the one prior to this, because it depends on what the students knew ahead of time. If they're having a hard time struggling with what you're learning, then you have to slow it down. You just can't keep going. So although, yes, a timer may help, but if I got 50% of my students asking questions, or I will say 60%, and they're all confused, then I need to slow it down and try to take more time to explain, because that's more than half of my class that didn't get it. So I guess it just depends on how many days I've been on a lesson. The first day, especially if it's something that's new, then I'm going to slow it down.
I think, thank you for sharing, Ms. Champion. It would definitely depend as far as how much time you spend in a particular portion of the lesson cycle. It definitely, what you taught before and how the students learned the day before does definitely speak to the amount of time you may, or adjustments you may have to make in your lesson for the following day. But it is very important to make sure that we stick to our time so that we can cover all of our content. Surely if you're in the I do portion of the lesson and you're going over your time, it must mean that the entire class did not get the lesson from the day before. So if it was more than half of the class, I should say less than half of the class, then you probably will need to make adjustments within the other portions of your lesson cycle, such as having a small group or engaging the kids in outside tutorials to meet their needs and to adhere to the lesson cycle. I can see where you may respond unfavorably to this, but certainly there are ways that you can make adjustments so that you can keep up with the appropriate amount of time, or spend the appropriate amount of time within each portion of your lesson cycle so that you don't fall behind in your lessons overall. Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Champion. Feedback scenario 4. There was no evidence of an exemplar or learning objective for today's lesson, so it was difficult to determine if student learning expectations were met. How would you respond to this feedback? And you just give a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat. And how are we looking in the chat box?
A lot of favorables.
Definitely one that's favorable, or probably more favorable. And if you responded unfavorably to this one, then we definitely need to talk. Thank you. Feedback scenario 5. The video clip that you showed was very effective in helping students make personal connections to the lesson today. Favorably or unfavorably? Should have mostly favorable on this one. Do we have any unfavorablies?
I don't see any yet. Hopefully not.
All right, so all favorablies for this one, I'm sure. Next scenario. I noticed that only half of your students were engaged in the lesson today. Incorporate more student-centered activities to get all students involved in the lesson. Favorably or unfavorably? Do we have any unfavorably for this one?
Yes, we have one. Let me see here. Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Wilson, care to share with us why you would respond unfavorably to this feedback?
I think it's more of just like give me an example of how to do this, because I know that's something that sometimes I struggled with some of the kids being engaged and then some of them just kind of staring out the window. So I would probably I just need more, like incorporate student-centered activities to get them involved. That's great, but like how? Show me how, tell me how.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wilson. I think just like Mr. Sanchez was saying before, that it's not necessarily this feedback is something that you would not respond well to. You would want more. I would say, you said only half of the students. I probably would want an actual count. Sometimes I've counted the number of students in your room and then the number of students that are on task, some of the students that are not on task. And then I would make an assessment that way to make it more concrete. And then that way, the next time I come back, we would see, okay, well, this time it was less students off task and more students on task. But I think the missing link that you're saying, or why it'd be unfavorable to you, is that you don't have the how in there. You want the fix. You want the advice piece, not just the statement of observation or what you saw, but you want the how do I fix this? And most definitely that is a part of the feedback process as well. And I agree with you in that you do need to know the how so that you can correct this error. Number 7, please declutter your classroom. The current classroom environment is not conducive for learning. Do you respond favorably or unfavorably to this? And I know to some of you, this does not apply because you are as neat as a pin. So how do you respond? Clean up the room. And how are we looking in the chat?
So Miss Davis, Krista Davis had unfavorably. I don't know if she may be joking, but yeah, a lot of, well, we know she may not be because it's a few other ones, not many though.
Okay, so for this one, and I'm going out again, hold on. Okay, so for this one, I would say some people will probably agree with me that some teachers will argue that students aren't paying any attention to the clutter. They're paying attention to me here at the front of the room, and then others will argue that a room being in disarray is not one where students can grow and thrive, and it's not conducive to learning. For someone who replied, or they said they would respond favorably, what are your thoughts?
I have to agree with Mr. Samuels mentioned that a messy room is an indication of poor teaching. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, to me, how do you know where anything is, or are you able to get to anything to keep the lesson cycle going if kids are tripping over stuff, folders are all over here, and the room is a disarray? Because it takes up time if your students are searching for stuff. because you have no organization.
Miss Sweeney, I do agree with Miss Champion. Also, I think that Miss Peterson just wrote in the environment is important. I think that if your classroom is a little unorganized, a little messy, I think that does affect the capability of learning. Not to say that you can still be a great teacher, but we're thinking about the student's perspective. And yeah, I think that does affect the learning environment.
Can I add on to that?
Yes.
I've had a student or a few students come in and tell me about other teachers' classes, and they'll be like, Miss So-and-so has the journals like this, or has the kids notice. They really do notice. I'm constantly trying to reorganize, but I know that like the kids will pay attention to how things are. Oh, your room is clean, your desk is, they pay attention. So I think it's just one less distraction for the kids.
And to add on to what Daphne said, they really do. I had kids come down from 7th grade last year to my 6th grade, and they were like, the room wasn't on this nice last year, even though my room was still in order, but I had more stuff hung up, and they were like really kind of sad, and they thought that I took more time for the new 6th graders than I did for them. And I was like, no, I was just learning what all I needed to have up, guys.
So in other words, the kids take notice to their environment. Anyone who said they would respond unfavorably to this scenario, if you could read from the chat, Mr. Du Bois, anything from the chat, or someone could share why you responded unfavorably to this feedback.
Miss Sweeney, repeat that. I was in here with Martinez. You wanted just me to call out the chat? Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So Ms. Garcia said yes. Ms. Barr said, I think for everyone, if an environment is cluttered and messy, it can be depressing. If that's, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That
so I
makes
mean,
sense.
that's
All right.
basically what's going on in the chat. They're agreeing with Ms. Davis. It's like that.
Okay. All right, so I think most of us, thank you so much for that. I think most of us can speak to the fact that environment does play a factor, a huge factor in how well kids learn, the physical environment, as well as the mood and tone of your classroom. So I think that this particular statement wasn't sugar-coated. It wasn't, your room's a little messy. It was declutter your classroom. The classroom environment is not conducive. So it could come across as harsh or negative, especially if you're just by nature a person that is a little messy or tends to have to declutter. I know myself, I have to constantly declutter. I have a lot of things and they don't always stay as organized as I'd like for them to be. But it is important that we look at this sort of feedback, especially when it's something you have a natural tendency toward. We should try to make some adjustments to move towards what is best for students and not necessarily what it is that we think is best for us. Although, I mean, we might be able to thrive in a messy environment, but it may not be good for our students. So thank you guys for sharing on that one. The next one. I know you work hard on your lesson plan, but your lesson plan or your lesson wasn't rigorous enough to get the students to where they need them to be to master STAR. Okay, favorable or unfavorable. And I would like to hear from someone who would respond unfavorably to this scenario, if you could share with us.
Can I share?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
So if I was a new teacher coming in and I got this feedback here, like, well, I don't know where to get that information or how to, push the students or get where to go and get the questions. So I think if I were a first year teacher, or maybe even a second year, I would respond unfavorably to this because I'll be left more confused than anything. That's what I would say. So just add on a little more.
And it's is this during like PLC when we're giving the the run through lessons or the actual lesson in the classroom, because it should have been caught before that even got to the students. So I don't know which where we're going with this, but if it was afterwards, I would kind of be upset because I'm like, y'all didn't tell me, you know, ahead of time, you know, that this wasn't rigorous enough.
Okay. And I'll speak to that.
I would like to.
I think for both comments, on the first one, it was again going that extra step to give me additional feedback to accompany this statement. I probably respond, or someone, or you would probably respond more favorably to it. It would seem more helpful in nature. And then as far as the, well, nobody told me anything, then that speaks to the feedback that should have been done on the front end. So the feedback that led up to the delivery of this lesson where your rigor wasn't there. So in the PLCs, you mentioned some really good points. In the PLCs, the feedback needs to be provided. When you submit your lesson plan, the feedback needs to be provided so that once you do get up and do your best lesson ever, the rigor is actually there. And then when you deliver it as a teacher and an educator, you have to make sure that you bring it the way you brought it when you modeled it during the PLC. You don't want to fall flat once you get into the classroom. And then you could plan and model in the PLC, get into your classroom and realize, oh my God, these kids really have it. And then you just need to bring it up to that next level with that group and know how to make the necessary adjustments in order to get them there. So excellent, excellent points. Thank you for bringing those points up because they're very valid points. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this scenario? Very good, then we'll move on. Scenario 9, it is difficult to monitor learning if you are seated at your desk while your students are working independently. How do you respond, favorably or unfavorably? Is there anyone that said unfavorably, or you could just unmute yourself and share?
Yeah, mostly I would like to share. I'm Mr. Cuarenta.
Hi, Mr. Cuarenta.
I think, I mean, it should be like the sandwich model. It should include some positive points and then move on to what's not good. So it should be more like, oh, I really appreciate, or I really like this about your lesson, but you can do a better job if you do this and that instead to be more effective, or for the lesson to be more effective.
Yes. So if I understand you correctly, you would respond favorably to this feedback if it was stated in a more positive manner.
Yes, yes. And of course, giving some ways how to fix that, how to.
Absolutely. And then in addition to that, let me know how it is that I can actually walk around and monitor some effective ways of monitoring the students while they're working. Excellent. That's understandable. Would anyone else care to share? All right, moving on. Last scenario. The transitions between activities must be seamless in order to maximize class time and avoid behavioral disruptions in the classroom. How do you respond to this feedback? Anyone see this as unfavorable? Mr. Du Bois, can we call out the chat?
Yeah, so a lot of favorables. Miss King, I know she's in the cafeteria with the audio, so maybe if you want to step out in the hallway, you can unmute yourself. She had an unfavorable, but Ms. Garcia she said, seamless how, tell me how you would do it. I guess, so she has a question, but mostly favorables, and like I said, we had Ms. King had the unfavorable.
Okay, so again, what it seems, yes, go ahead.
Hello, team. I'm Ms. Lewis, and I put unfavorable because like Mr. McCoy said, it's the sandwich and that makes the teacher want to continue to be better. And sorry. And I believe another teacher mentioned that if you show me how, I can definitely get it done the way that it needs to be, that it needs to be done for the students to maximize that expectation. So I think it's just the how again with the sandwich. I feel like all of us love that sandwich. Like, tell me something I'm good at so I can keep doing it and motivate me to continue to be that great teacher.
Excellent points, Ms. Lewis. Thank you for sharing. I definitely think that this particular feedback could have been stated in a more of a positive manner. Again, sometimes it's all in the packaging, as you said before, and sometimes it's the delivery. It depends on what it is that we're having to say and how we say it. That makes a huge difference in whether or not we respond favorably or unfavorably to feedback. And definitely that how is a big part of it. Once you provide that feedback and you tell me that I'm not up to par on a certain aspect, also double back and give me the fix. How do I make this better?
I keep piggybacking. I wanted to add one thing. I think that Ms. Ellis, when she did her presentation, she talked about the why. And I know we're talking about how and how I can make this better, but really, if I'm giving a feedback and I'm evaluating, I'm going to look at why did that happen? Why do you have that lapse in time, or why is it not seamless? And I can say, okay, look at your planning, or you can tell me why is it happening. You know what I'm saying? If the person is evaluating and telling me, explaining me how this happened, I can prevent it from happening before. I know it's kind of essentially the same thing, but it's when you explain to me why I'm doing something wrong. Even my own students, if I'm explaining to them why you keep not being able to come up with complete thoughts on your writings or whatever the case may be, you can kind of troubleshoot versus just keep telling me what I'm doing wrong.
Thank you, Ms. Dapper. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that sometimes some of the feedback, and when we're in our feedback sessions, we should think about why things may be, or engage in the discussion to find out why a particular teacher has taken on a certain approach, and that would also be helpful in getting to the how to fix something once you understand why the teacher is doing something in the manner in which they're doing it. And I agree with you with that as well. And again, the whys, the hows, that necessary discussion is definitely going to play a major part in our acceptance of feedback and even in giving feedback to others. So as we talked about before, and you guys have mentioned in so many different ways, what you say matter. The words matter when it comes down to feedback, and how you say something impacts the receiver a whole lot more than what you say. And that goes both ways, from the receiver of the feedback and the one giving the feedback. Sometimes when we're apprehensive or we're unfavorable and we don't really agree with what we're being presented, our response back to that has to also be worded in such a way that we are showing that we're receptive and that we're willing to learn, and that we're not just turning down the feedback and downright not willing to listen and to grow and develop. So it's not so much as the words that you choose, but basically how you use them that's going to matter the most when it comes down to delivering and receiving feedback. So you can say what you mean and not be mean at the same time. Let's take a look at another video I have for you. And in this one, you'll also be taking down some notes while you're watching. We're gonna look at feedback in another aspect. You guys spoke a lot about the actual giver of feedback in addition to you as receiver. So when we look at this video, we're gonna look at the evaluator as well as the receiver. And I want you to think to yourself, is there anything in here that would indicate that the evaluator takes some responsibility for some of the things that he's providing feedback. And are there any steps that we can take to avoid the outcome or an outcome such as the one that we have here for Penny in her performance review? Please be prepared to discuss the video briefly after viewing.
So I brought you in to talk about your performance. I'm not happy. Like this right now just is unprofessional. You're a visionary. I know. But the 3-hour naps in the middle of the day cannot continue. I don't take naps. You don't take naps. Okay, let's talk about your reports. Here is Bill's quarterly. This is what you give me. That's Mommy. Let's talk about your lunch break. Playtime. You know, a lot of our associates are taking working lunches, trying to catch up on workload, and you're off God knows where, doing God knows what. I don't think it's working out. I think we need to say goodbye. Bye. No, Penny, we need to part ways at this juncture. You're fired. Please don't fire me. I'm sorry, Penny. You're fired. I have to support my mom and dad. Penny, I don't want to hear about your personal life. I'm gonna work harder. You've said this before. I'm gonna work smarter. No. Thanks so much for joining the team. Welcome.
Okay. So how receptive is Penny to her evaluator's feedback? And is Penny's evaluator accountable for her performance? What steps should we take to avoid such an outcome? Is there anyone that would like to share out? Don't all speak at once.
I'll say something. Well, I think, this video reminded me of what I was thinking about earlier, which is how important it is to know who you're speaking with, not just how you're going to give the feedback, but building those relationships with the people that you're dealing with and who you're talking to, because I may take feedback different than Ms. Dappa. You could say the same thing and be nice and sweet, but Ms. Dappa may want it like, okay, just give it to me straight. I may be like, sugarcoat it for me. So just kind of knowing who you're talking to is important when you're giving feedback as well.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I think taking ownership and also being able to understand where you may have went wrong in a situation is very important. You have to, be willing to grow. And if you're not willing to grow, then you're not going to go anywhere. And, I've had recent encounters, of the same thing. And I think that's part of the reason like this is very important to me. And showing that growth is one of the things that helps you to keep going. And if you come up with an excuse for every reason why you're doing something, you never are going to grow. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, those of you in the Greek world know excuses are nothing but. So you have to make sure that, you're willing to grow, and coming up with an excuse is not going to help you grow.
Yes. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to share? Did anyone find that the appraiser bears some of the responsibility for Penny's performance? Is there anyone out there that caught that?
Yeah, the feedback from the appraiser itself is not directly targeted to the level of understanding of the person, receiving the feedback. It's in an office setting. There's nothing for her Penny to do except for kind of sit there and ignore it. It's not along with the. It probably would be better if it was steady reminders, little bitty things to go along through the day, and not just the casual in the office pressure situation feedback, because Penny doesn't understand.
Absolutely. There definitely should be checkpoints to be checking up on Penny's performance. And then you have to wonder, did she ever figure out, or did she ever know, was she ever provided the expectations of her role? Was she given any feedback before? And it's obvious that she was, because in the end, he said, no, we've had this conversation before. That's what you said the last time. So they've had the conversation before. So what did the appraiser do in the meantime to avoid this outcome? That would be the question that I would have regarding this feedback process. Any other comments? Very good. Again, it is not always what you say that matters. In this case, sometimes what you don't say. Didn't give Penny the necessary feedback that she needed, didn't provide the clear expectations and clear communication, so the outcome was unclear. And then definitely whatever you say, definitely be mindful of how you say what it is that you mean. So thus far, we've learned how important feedback is, and we know, as you guys have discussed, that feedback is the key to improvement. And our local pharmacies, our grocery stores, online stores, they all have taken full advantage of the necessity for feedback. They quickly gather feedback, solicit feedback, gather that feedback, interpret that feedback, and they turn it around, and they profit by making the necessary adjustments and changes they need to make to continue to meet their performance or their goals, their bottom line, and to meet the needs of their customers. So what do our experts contend? Bill Gates of Microsoft Corp contends that we all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. Ken Blanchard, leadership guru and author of The 1 Minute Manager, says that feedback is the breakfast of champions. Stephen Levitt, author and economist, co-authored Freakonomics. The key to learning is feedback. It is nearly impossible to learn anything without it. Elon Musk of SpaceX and Tesla. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better, how you could do it better. Dr. Jesus Martinez, education guru and principal here at Seagoville Middle School, says that feedback serves as a means for identifying strengths and as an opportunity for reflection of practice. Tila Maupin, education guru and assistant principal here at Seagoville Middle School, says that feedback is necessary to improve teacher and student learning. Expert Tina Ellis, assistant principal here at Seagoville Middle School. It's all about growth. Our purpose is to grow kids. In order to do that, we have to grow ourselves. And Mr. Wayne Boland, education guru and assistant principal here at Seagoville Middle School, says that teams who don't make adjustments during the game or throughout the season don't win championships. Without feedback, growth and the attainment of goals have very little chance of success. What are your thoughts? What role does feedback play in your development? And if you would, just take a moment and think about that. Okay. At this point, you should be pretty convinced that feedback plays a huge part in your growth and development as an educator. If it's your first year or you're in your 40th something year, by now you should understand that getting feedback, getting the advice, soliciting the advice, and also sharing advice with others is vital in improving your craft, especially given the circumstances in which we are working today. I have another video that I would like for you to view. And in this video, we learn a little bit more about feedback from Coach Carter. I want you to think about the type of feedback that Coach Carter is giving his players, how he's doing that effectively, and how he is providing the feedback so that his players can improve in this last quarter of the game.
Gentlemen, you told me you deserve to be here. Well, you're not playing like it. All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game. We make them play Richmond Oil ball. Worm, you can take this kid. Force him left. And when he crosses over, you jump him. Damian, push the tempo. Kenyon, loud, crash the board. Cruz, when you're in the game in transition, take that jumper you love. Junior, just keep doing what you're doing. Hold on to that monster. You do those things, gentlemen, and I guarantee you, at the end of the game, we will be there. All right, hands in. All right, take control of this game. Who's going to win this game? 1, 2, 3, reset. Let's go.
Okay, so how does Coach Carter provide feedback so players are clear about what they're doing effectively and what they can do to improve? If you care to share, go ahead and unmute yourselves, or feel free to type your response in the chat.
He's giving specific feedback. He's giving, telling this player, hey, you like that jump shot, go take it. Hey, we control the tempo of the game. How do we do that? You do this, you do this. He's specifically giving individual feedback to each other person.
Excellent. Specific, individualized, user-friendly feedback.
I'll add to it. He's also letting them know, what they're doing good. Like he told one boy, hang on to that boy. Let's tell him, we know he's really good and you're doing a good job against him. Don't get discouraged. Keep on doing what you're doing. So they probably gave him the strength to let him know, even though he's getting buckets, I can still keep on playing and keep on doing what I'm supposed to do.
Excellent. It is specific. He's telling them exactly what they're doing and motivating them in the process. Thank you. Anyone else? What do we have in the chat? Do we have anything in the chat?
Other than they stating that he is very, Miss Ellis, he is positive. He controlled the tempo of the game and told them what they are doing. That was Miss Hitchens. And yeah, so that's basically timely feedback. Miss Patterson, very timely feedback.
Very timely feedback. Excellent. So he's controlling the tempo of the game. And not only that, he knew when to step in and provide the feedback. He called a timeout. Clearly, when he looked at the clock, he saw what they were doing. He saw the time left. He called time. He assessed the situation, and his feedback was timely. It was in action. You too should receive feedback in action. We'll be visiting you during your live sessions, during your Zoom sessions, and we will be providing feedback to you that is in the moment. Anything else?
I like that he, when he was starting his feedback, he said it's something that we do. He didn't just put it all on the players. He made it a part of the culture. He made it part of what they all do.
Excellent. So in providing his feedback, he didn't just put everything on the players. He brought in that we factor, because we're only as great as our weakest team member. So we don't thrive, we don't succeed if any one of us is not performing optimally. And Coach Carter does a very good job of letting them know what's at stake and letting them know that this champion could be yours if you make these necessary adjustments. So he provided that how to do it. He gave them specific, clear instructions, and he told them to go back in the game, and he motivated them and again reminded them of the fact that we are a team and that we're in this together. Thank you for sharing. So again, our feedback has to be smart, has to be specific. It needs to be measurable and relevant and time-based. You will sit in your pre-conferences with your evaluators through modeling and coaching. You'll come up with those, you'll receive that specific feedback. In your look back sessions, you'll look at data. You'll talk about and discuss what is actually going on in the classroom as a part of your PLCs. And your feedback will be time-based, aligned with getting better faster, and it'll be tied to the short cycle goals that you've created. Mr. Martinez spoke to us about developing your one-day goal, your day one goal, your week one goal, and your goals for every month. Those are short cycle goals. So we're going to receive feedback on those goals that we set for ourselves, because after all, they're goals. They're what we set up so that we can bring ourselves to the point of success. Now, you be the expert. At this point, you know everything about feedback. So what I want you to do is to just take a moment and create your quote about the importance of feedback. Go ahead and type that inside the chat. Your quote on feedback. So to me, feedback is whatever that is, type it inside the chat. And we'll take about 1 minute to get that done. All right, can I get a call from the chat? What do we have in there? What are our quotes from our now leading experts on feedback?
Feedback is a tool to help one become better. Feedback is helpful and necessary. Let's see, it's moving quick, so they're coming in. Feedback is water and sunlight that helps you bloom. I like that one, Ms. Knight.
Love that one. I'm stealing that one.
Photosynthesis, science, okay. Feedback is a form of care. You got Ms. Alvarez. Feedback should be positive, constructive, and realistic.
Love it.
And then one more, Ms. Darnell says, includes the person's strengths and areas of for improvement, also offers ideas and or examples.
Awesome. Awesome. So keep those quotes coming. I'll be borrowing those, and hopefully I can add your face as my next guru with your quote on feedback. So please keep those coming. I did want to take a moment and talk a little bit about coaching as it relates to feedback. So I'll move through these. when you think of development and developing yourself as an educator, for those of us that have been around a while, and probably to those of you that are new to the field, you should know the name Paul Bainbrick. Paul Bainbrick is an education guru that has a number of different training programs for leaders and educators on how to develop teachers so that we can meet the needs and goals of our students. He basically, in his book, Get Better Faster, he says that teaching should be broken down into discrete skills, should be planned out, should be practiced, and should be repeated. So in that, you know, in the practice, in the planning, in the repetition, there's feedback. He feels that in order for a teacher to master most of their skills, to do that quickly, it's important that you get the feedback timely, that you get it in the moment. He feels that there is a scope and there is a sequence for teacher development, and that feedback delivered in the moment and frequently is the best way to get your teachers to where they need to be. Otherwise, for the teacher that has no idea what they're doing, they have nowhere to go. And then for the teacher that's been doing it for a while, they don't know that there are some adjustments that they can make to better meet the needs of their students. And they need to get feedback in order to make that happen. So what are the practices in which you will be receiving coaching and feedback? The other day, it was yesterday, we introduced to you the Seagoville Virtual Instructional Model. It is throughout this process that you will receive your coaching and your feedback. Again, as I mentioned before, we will visit, your appraisers will visit, your ILTs will visit, your mentors, for those of you who are new, they'll visit your Zoom sessions while you're giving your live whole group instruction. While your students are working on independent work, they'll visit. There'll be co-teachers in your Google Classroom, so they'll see the rigor. They'll be a part of the planning process, but then they'll also be able to visit and coach based on observations that they've made in your classrooms and in looking to see where you've implemented those things you've modeled into your practice every single day here as you work through the instructional model. They'll be using the Get Better Faster scope and sequence. This is from Bainbrick's book, where they'll look at how well you manage your classroom. That would be the management trajectory. They'll look at how well your rules and routines, how well you roll those out in transition. If you use a strong voice and register with the students, are you using the correct registry? Are you using the correct tone with your students? You will have coaching and feedback on that. How rigorous are your lessons? Again, yes, you should receive the feedback prior to actually putting that lesson into practice, but also if it differs from what you did when you practiced your lessons early on doing PLCs, then you will receive coaching and feedback from your actual delivery or the actual delivery of your lessons in class. Are you building in those timestamps where you're moving through the lesson cycle and you're not wasting time? Or I should say, are you using your time effectively that you have with your students? Coaching and feedback will come through your teacher performance rubric through the TEI initiative. We'll look at how well you're designing those lesson plans, because yes, we will provide lesson plans. There are provided lesson plans. There are thousands of lesson plans out there, but can you tailor those lesson plans to meet the needs of your individual students and of diverse populations? Are you differentiating your lessons, and how well do you do that? Are you highly effective? Are you using your time wisely? Are you bringing those students up to where they need to be? Are students mastering the material, or are they barely getting by? And then in the next domain, domain 4, are you embracing the mindset of continuous improvement? How is your attendance? How compliant are you? Are you continuing to seek out knowledge? You're also evaluated in that capacity, and you can also receive coaching in that capacity, as well as are you creating a culture and climate that is conducive for learning in your classroom? What are your students' behavioral expectations? And as we move into behavior, we have our new interventionist on campus, our dean of students for behavior. When those level 1 students are sent to his office, their office will provide feedback on how you can reduce the number of students that are having behavioral problems in your class. In what ways they'll provide feedback and help you determine ways that you can build relationships with those students to avoid having difficulties with them in the behavioral capacity as well. Feedback and coaching, and I should say more on the feedback side, will also come through student surveys. So we have our student perspective surveys that we get in the spring, which is also a part of your TEI. A percentage of your income is also based on how the students feel in your class. Are they excited? How's the energy in your teacher's classroom? Does a teacher notice you? Are they excited? Are you excited to participate? And then when you're experiencing difficulty, what does your teacher do? So the students will also evaluate your performance and provide feedback as well. We spoke earlier about goals. We said that feedback should be tied to goals and align with your goals. So as you begin to set your goals and you sit down, you will receive feedback on those goals. And as you work to attain those goals, you will receive feedback. This allows opportunities, continuous opportunities for your growth, and you'll receive feedback through modeling, co-teaching, coaching in the moment, and in professional development and PLCs. Now, how will your coaching take place? So those conversations that you'll have with me, your coach, or Ms. Peterson, your IOTs, your mentors, your appraisers, it will all be virtual. So we have eCoach, which you'll learn more about. You have Zoom, we have by phone, and then we have some correspondence and some coaching that will take place via email. Those coaching sessions will be pre-conferencing and goal setting, where you establish your SLO, which is your student learning objective. You'll learn more about that. And I believe Ms. Wright, our TEI expert, did make mention of establishing a SLO. So when you need assistance with that, you can sit down with your CIC, your IOT, or your appraiser. Any growth goals that you have established for yourself, you'll want to let your appraiser know, let your coach know, so that we can begin goal setting together. You'll also have, again, opportunities for coaching in the moments. We'll be visiting your classrooms to see how you're implementing the new technologies and all of these great virtual instructional technology tools that we have. It is probably going to be really bumpy at first. So we'll come in to ascertain your needs and hopefully be able to meet with you to get you up to par so that you're experiencing the best possible environment so that you can better serve your students online. And we'll also be there to provide suggestions for growth and professional developments as well. And then we'll also work with you with your follow-ups, your post-conferences. We'll monitor your growth, and then we'll help you plan some future goals and make some future suggestions for professional development in the future. Just like when you were in school and your teachers and evaluators noticed your potential, we too will pick up on your potential and we'll make suggestions through coaching as far as ways and different things that you can do professionally here in education and hopefully here on campus. So what do the coaching sessions look like? Basically, we sit, we establish goals, we look at what's actually going on right now, we'll look at the reality, we'll talk about some options. This is that how portion where we spoke before. When we were looking at the different scenarios, a lot of you said, hey, I could respond favorably to this if I knew how to fix this. Give me an approach that I could possibly use. You'll do that in your coaching sessions. And then the way will be established. We will encourage you to commit to the process. When are you going to have this done? So if I give you feedback in the morning or we have a coaching session today, I need to see this implemented tomorrow or by the end of the week. So we want to make it, again, very specific, and measurable. And then when will we meet again so that we can provide you the additional support that you need so that you can be successful in implementing your goals and improve your performance? Your campus instructional coaches, myself and Ms. Peterson, we will begin to offer coaching cycles. So we're going to send out a survey. We want to know what it is that you feel you need help with professionally. We will have some general things, and then we'll also have some things that are specific to your content, and we'll have coaching sessions and professional development sessions available to work with you in developing your skills with technology. I know that for many of us, it is downright scary, the whole aspect of teaching, doing what we've been doing forever through this new mode or this new means of communication. So it's very new to us. And then those of us that are just walking in the door, not only do we have to face a whole new experience just being a teacher as a first year teacher in general, we also are faced with having to do this virtually. So it is our goal to figure out where you feel you need assistance, not just coming from what we see, but also to help you in that capacity as well, your personal choice for staff development. So let's take a moment and revisit our campus vision. Seagoville Middle School will empower and cultivate growth towards personal and academic excellence. Take a moment and think about how feedback, your receptiveness to it, us actually engaging in the process of coaching and feedback, and looking at it as a part of what we do to get better, how does that play into our school's vision? And would anyone like to share their thoughts? We'll take maybe one or two people. You can unmute yourselves and just speak. Again, how is feedback connected to our campus vision? No takers?
All right.
Ms. Sweeney. Go ahead, Ms. Witherspoon.
Okay, so hold on. So I say that if we don't have feedback, we're not able to cultivate the growth that we need for our kids and push them towards the academic excellence without having that knowledge from someone else saying you're not doing this, or what can you do to make yourself better? Thanks.
Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, echoing off once again, I think that in order for us to truly fulfill this vision, we need to be the best teachers we can be. And that means that we need to grow from any feedback, all feedback that we receive, provided again that it's actionable and specific, right?
Yes. Thank you both for sharing. And I think you both are absolutely correct in that in order to meet this vision, in order to cultivate growth and personal and academic excellence for our students, we ourselves must grow. Feedback and coaching is the best means for this to happen. And that feedback can come as long as it's effective, it's measurable, it's tangible. It doesn't necessarily have to just come from your CIC or from your mentor or your appraiser. You guys are experts in your field. You guys are also teacher leaders. And as you grow in some capacities, you too could also offer feedback to your fellow cohorts. And that would be what your professional learning communities are for you too to engage in that process. Take a moment to take a look again at our campus vision. So in revisiting our campus mission, the mission of Seagoville Middle School is to collaboratively provide a respectful, motivational, safe environment where students will become critical thinkers and lifelong learners. How does the coaching and feedback process connect with our school's mission?
I think that the collaborative part is directly connected to feedback, because that's how you collaborate. As one person is telling you, you're modifying and making adjustments to your lesson or to the way you give feedback. I think that once we, I guess, create that communication with our students, they can become lifelong learners, because if we're modifying the way that they write, I'm a writing teacher, so I'm gonna always comment on that. So if I'm teaching my student how to write and respond and use academic language, they can use that forever. They can always be able to respond, emails or whoever or whatever. So we can teach our students we just keep on correcting them, and they can use that for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. Definitely the portion where it says collaboratively, respectful, those are all the places where us getting together and being in a school where we value feedback and we use feedback well, we will definitely be able to meet our school's mission once we embrace that concept. Thank you for sharing, Ms. Dappa. We basically can't continue with the same old thinking, because the same old thinking ends up giving us the same old results. Coaching and feedback are developmental tools used to enable us to achieve our campus vision and mission. These tools are designed to help teachers and provide the needed things that we have to do here to provide the best instruction possible for our students. And I'll finish with this quick video clip.
Just the other day on Facebook, I had a dear teacher. She sent me a message on Facebook, and it sort of bothered me, but I had to give her my hardcore, raw, realistic advice. She says, Candace, things are going crazy at my school. We are on alert. You can only imagine how many teachers are either leaving in the middle of the school year, retiring early in the middle of the year, stressed out, have stress-related issues, crying at work. I just found out last Friday that a coworker of mine quit. Things must change. We are overwhelmed and stressed out. Everyone is just trying to make it to the end of the school year. Now, you may have heard these same type of conversations. You may have had this same type of dialogue with some of your colleagues. But I want to share with you what I shared with this dear teacher. I asked her one question. What's your why? Yeah, I said, what's your why? Then I told her, I said, check this out. Let's say if I was walking down the sidewalk, and to the left of me, there was a huge river. And as I was walking down the sidewalk, my cell phone fell in the river. Now, I may be tempted to jump in the river to grab my cell phone, but I will pause for a second, because I would think about how valuable is that cell phone to me. Then I said, what if I was walking down the same sidewalk and my mom was with me? And my mom fell into the river and she could not swim. Now I would have a motive, or I would be motivated to now jump into the river because there was something of value that I wanted to retrieve. So now I have a big why for jumping in the river. Teacher, educator, principal, administrator, substitute teacher, paraprofessional, caring adult, PTSA board director, whomever you are, the question today I ask you is this: what is your why? You see, it's not about you, it's about your why. Every single day you're getting up. Every single hour you're putting in work. You stand up in front of the class teaching and training and depositing. And yes, I know you get tired. Yes, I know you get frustrated. But it's not about you, it's about your why.
And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. Make sure before those kids show up to your virtual classroom on Monday, make sure that you, if you don't already know it, make sure you know your why. Thank you and have a good day.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sweeney, for that. Everybody, please post in the chat. Give Ms. Sweeney a very, very big thank you virtually, And if you see it on campus, thank you for that. That was very impactful. What we're going to be doing this year. So I know y'all are looking at the schedules, and I know y'all are like, what about lunch? Don't worry, we got you all. We're going to jump right into our next presentation session, Mr. Bolden with staff handbook. I guarantee you that my session, staff handbook, and the virtual student expectations won't. They'll be a little short, but you will still get your hour lunch. I know how y'all feel about lunch. So go ahead and get out of this meeting and go to the next session, and we'll be starting. Take about 5 minutes. We'll start that next session. Thank you.